Good. So, hey, this is Brandon Brittingham with the Maryland and Delaware Group of Law and Foster, also Rocket Fuel Real Estate Training, and really excited today because I got somebody that I've got a good relationship with, and I've had the fortunate opportunity to have him speak to my team. NFL veteran, was in the backfield for one of the greatest teams of all time, one of the greatest dynasties, the New England Patriots. So he might know a thing or two about, how teamwork works. And after his NFL career, he's become, an entrepreneur, just a genuinely good dude. Anytime I've ever reached out to him, he's helped me in any way he can, giving me great advice. We're here today with Heath Evans. What's up, man?
BB. Now I've got two BBs in my life. I got Bill Belichick and you, buddy. So listen, I would say Bill's in great company.
Yeah, yeah. So, was really lucky enough. I heard you speak a few times, but you actually called in and spoke to my team one day, and it was just absolutely captivating. People are in awe of what the New England Patriots have done. Brady going down as probably the GOAT. Belichick as a GOAT coach. And you were fortunate enough to be in the backfield and be in that building and learn about that culture. Just unpack some stuff. What you learned, what made them so great.
It always starts with the head. I don't care if we're talking family, fatherhood, business, entrepreneurship, churches, politics, whatever it is. We know it starts from the head down, and the proof is always in the pudding. And so when we talk Patriots, people have labeled that Patriots way. And you've known me long enough now. I call it the Belichick way because it starts and ends with him. And his consistency is what has allowed them to be great for so long. And yes, you can't take away the greatness of the Tom Brady's. You can't take away the greatness of the Teddy Bruschi's and the Mike Vrabels that have now, like a Mike Vrabel went from a great player now to a great coach. But if it wouldn't have been for the consistency of Bill Belichick, none of those individual stars would have learned what they needed to learn to achieve their personal level of greatness. And the beauty about those stars under Bill Belichick is their humble nature that I believe was constructed or refined under Bill Belichick. I think all those guys had a nature that wanted to serve and that wanted to work hard. But under the leadership and under the consistency of Bill, they found better how to really breathe life into their own giftedness. And so when you look at what the Patriots are, what they have been, and what they will continue to be under Bill Belichick, it starts with leadership and consistency. And that would take 17 days to dive into all the different kind of like sub-levels of context of consistency. But anyone listening today, if you are a leader, find a way to put consistency all over your walls, all over your car, because if you're not consistent, nobody under you has the power to be consistent either.
Yeah. And one thing that I will tell you that stuck with me that you said from consistency standpoint, and I think you said this, that practice with Belichick was boring compared to other places. Because you guys did the same thing over and over again. But, speaking on consistency, but the thing was, when it came game time, it was like subconscious because you had practiced it so many times. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I titled that thing Master the Mundane.
Right.
It was about doing the little boring things that we day after day after day after day. And so we talk about, you mentioned Tom Brady being the GOAT and Bill Belichick being the GOAT coach. Well, why in the heck would Tom Brady literally be throwing routes on air with no defense, literally just him, the quarterback, no center exchange, literally, and a wide receiver practicing? Is this an 8-yard route? Is this a 7-yard route? Is it an 11-yard route? Are you turning inside? Are you turning outside? We would do these things over and over and over again. And Bill would always slow the tempo of practice down so that the mental reps were taken flawlessly over and over again. Because he knew it was always the so-called devil in the details. And so there was a a persistence about Bill and our leaders under him that we're always going to do everything flawlessly. And it was almost, when you first get there, you almost feel like you're being belittled because you're asked to do the same thing over and over and over. Because Bill knows if you can master the mundane things, when it comes time to do the most crucial thing in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, he'll be able to trust you to get it right. Most teams don't want to put in the time or the effort or the emotional fortitude it takes to do the little things well, day after day, time after time. And that's why the consistency of the overall team falls off when it matters most.
Yeah, so people that, you may not be familiar with how the game of football works, I don't want this to go over somebody's head. Tom Brady, arguably the GOAT, Belichick made him practice routes without throwing the ball.
Yeah. I mean, we call it routes on air. Now, listen, he actually has the ball, yes, but there's no defense. So
Right.
there's no one covering the wide receiver. There's no defensive line rushing Tommy to bash his head in and get a sack. It is literally, we call it routes on air. So it is Tom Brady not taking, there's no snap, there's no center quarterback exchange. So all that we're doing is literally dropping back. Tommy's going 3-step, 5-step, 7-step, whatever the play demands. And then he is making sure that route on air by the wide receiver is at its perfect depth, perfect mark. The shoulder turn is perfect. Every little detail to make the route in that play perform in a game structure is perfect, but we're doing it on air. So it's like a 4-year-old out in the yard with your dad throwing the ball.
Right.
And then we have what's called ball handling every day, where us running backs, there's no defense. And it's literally Brady just handing the ball off. We're practicing taking our steps. If my first step is supposed to be at the outside, butt cheek of the right tackle, it's going to be a perfect step. And so our steps are perfectly aligned together to get that perfect handoff time after time. And there's literally 15 to 18 minutes a day spent on routes on air and ball handling with no defense, nothing to obstruct our performance from the defensive side of the ball whatsoever. And we are just mastering the mundane of what we do day after day, time after time, week after week, season after season. And none of those details or parts of practice are ever left to be any less emotionally important or physically exerting than when we're practicing against the defense or when we're in a game. And then because that emphasis is taken every single day on the mundane stuff that, anybody can do, then when we get in the game, the most pressure-packed periods of the game are just easy because we have so managed an emotional level of expectation, doing the easiest, dumbest things time after time after time after time, that when the greatest moments come and the hardest moments to perform come, your mindset has never been allowed to be weak in the mundane things. So it's superior and sharp when it comes to the most power-packed moments.
Yeah, which is just absolutely remarkable. The other thing that from the outside world, you see, in sports, you see a lot of stars, they have huge egos, right? Same in business, people get a certain level of success, get a really large ego. But one of the things that I think the outside world, that you do see, not knowing anything about the organization, is you see guys with egos go there, and then all of a sudden they don't have an ego. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. You either don't have an ego or you go bye-bye.
Right.
And so many leaders are unwilling to admit that they maybe missed on a hire, or maybe they missed on selling a home. Maybe they messed up. The one thing I've always applauded, or one of the things I've always applauded Belichick on, is he's never scared to say, I screwed up, but he will quickly rectify that mistake. So if it was a major off-season acquisition of someone that they believed would come in and fit the team mentality of what the Belichick way demands, if he misses, hey, I made that decision. This is me, Bill Belichick. I screwed up. I missed the mark. Bye-bye. No matter what it costs that team financially, Bill's like, no, we're getting that cancer out of our team because we know that cancer, if I keep him, I might get to save $10 million.
Right.
But that cancer is going to cost us $25 or $30 million over the course of that contract. So he's like, no, I'm cutting my losses now. the beauty about what the Belichick way creates is, you hear me teach all the time that relationships release results. We're in a results-driven world. If you don't produce results, your company is going bankrupt. If Bill Belichick doesn't produce results, he will be fired by Mr. Kraft. Period. The end. If I don't produce results with Ava and Naomi as a father, I will fail them, and their choices and decisions throughout their life will reflect poorly on my parenting. So relationships are impossible to thrive with ego. And so people have this misconception because of media and because of bullet point media coverage that Bill Belichick is this massive ego guy. He's one of the most humble guys I've ever been around in my life.
Yeah.
He wants to serve his team. He wants to serve his owner. He wants to serve his coaches. And so when players get there with ego, you're like, oh, dang. Well, I can't thrive here, much less survive here, if this is a me-driven place or a me-driven teammate. And so the beauty of the Belichick way is that there is no room for ego, because a given week, Brady might be asked to throw the ball 50 times and be the hero. And the very next week, the greatest quarterback of all times might be asked to throw the ball 22 times, and we might rush for 250 yards. And then the running backs and the defense and the special teams are the so-called heroes. Where really, we don't play hero status with the New England Patriots. We play the team is the hero. The team is the focus. It's never a me first place. And so if you're not willing to put your ego aside, your bank account, your stats aside, you will never survive very long under the Belichick way, because it's never about me. And it is never a personality, me focused place, not in a game plan, not in a practice, not in an off season, never, ever, ever. Relationships are what has produced a 20-year dynasty, period, the end. And ego destroys relationships.
Yeah, so that kind of leads me to my next question, which is something you shared with me is, in the business world, me being an entrepreneur, everything is so competitive, right? And when you see really successful companies scale, and that's in, sports and in any genre of business, when you unpack it and you get behind it, a lot of times what we see is they had a great team and they had a great team mentality. And you really experienced that in New England. So kind of tell me, what's Belichick's philosophy on you mentioned it to me, team first, last time you were speaking with my team.
Yeah. Listen, I probably want to go to the root here of what makes Bill great. But really, he's just created an environment. And I've shared with your team about we as leaders, we have to create an environment that is so who and what we are, that when we hire or we bring someone into that team, that if they don't immediately buy in, they stick out like a sore thumb. So no matter how great their talent is, no matter how many relationships they're bringing to the office, no matter how many homes they're selling, touchdowns they're scoring, if it is about them, they stick out like a sore thumb. So it's very easy for you or Bill Belichick to remove that problem before it infiltrates the system of what's created the awesomeness of what is the Belichick way. But you've also heard me say, and this is probably the heart that Bill carries so well, I don't believe you can fake the funk in leadership when it really, really matters. I believe you can have a one-hit wonder team. I believe you can have, and I'm not saying the Philadelphia Eagles are built wrong. You can have the Baltimore Ravens one here, the Philadelphia Eagles one here, the team that has a splash in the pan great season. But if you're going to build what we call a dynasty in the sports world, actions matter, but motives matter most. Bill Belichick's motives in everything are strategically aligned to really what he believes. So when he loves on a player, it's not, I'm loving on this player so I can get another Super Bowl ring for a notch in my belt. I'm not loving on this player or teaching this player for me. The more you're around Belichick, the more you see how much he really, truly cares about relationships. His one focus, he knows he was hired. The best way for him to honor Mr. Kraft is to produce wins. And so everything is what is best for the New England Patriots, because that is what I've been hired to do. So he will remove emotional attachments and trade a player away not because he doesn't love that player, not because he doesn't think that that player can still add value to the Patriots. He's just on his scale said, it is what's best for the team for me to move this player on. So Belichick's motives are pure. What happens in most leadership today, and I'm seeing it more and more than ever, people are taking truthful PowerPoints of even serving with love. But when you serve with love with the intent to boost your bank account, or when you serve with love, or you try to love people, or you try to educate people, or you try to encourage people with the ultimate motive of like, oh, I want to build a bigger company. I want a bigger bank account. This relationship here gives me the ability to buy that boat that I've wanted. It doesn't work that way long term. Yes, momentarily, you might create a team that is a splash in the pan. But if you ask what Belichick has created, he lives his mantra. You've heard me say he masters his mantra. What he believes, what he teaches, he lives out. And so when you're there at any point of time or any length of time, you feel Bill really engaging with you because he really cares about you. And it's in line with the overall art, what is best for the New England Patriots. So I think, and this has been a bit long-winded, so let me wrap it up with this. Our actions of how we do things on a daily basis matter. But the motives behind our actions as a leader, our human nature, you and I, babe, ultimately have this built-in human BS detector. So if we feel like someone is trying to build us up for their own good, it might fool us momentarily, but over time, in my family, my wants, my desires. And so that will be hard to respect long term. What Bill's done masterfully now for 2 decades is he has mastered his mantra, and his motives and intentionality behind what he preaches are pure. And that is what sets him apart. And that's where I don't think that as leaders, if we're fraudulent, if we're just taking good PowerPoint presentations and trying to implement them, but we really don't believe the power of loving people works, the power of investing in people works for their good, not my business good, for their good, not my team's good, it might create a splash in the pan, but it's never going to create the leadership dynasty that we're all after.
Yeah, which is just amazing stuff because obviously, I mean, God, in sports, probably the hardest championship to win is in the NFL. And then to win it and consistently be in it as much as they had, like you talked about, a team wins a Super Bowl here or there, but to be consistently in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl, that is just a testament to all the things that you're saying. You cannot get there without consistency, not in the NFL, not in business either, but the NFL is probably one of the hardest places to repeat a championship than any other sports league that's out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, you're running a big business, and inside that business, you have a bunch of people with leadership skill sets. Now, you take 53 basically alpha males and stuff them in one locker room.
Right.
And then it really doesn't stop there because then you have a coaching staff of another 17, 18, 19 alpha males that believe they can add value to this coaching staff. And then you have the one head coach, all right? Then you have an assistant coach, but then you have this owner, and then you have a GM, and then you have all these personnel people, and they all firmly believe in their talents and abilities to create greatness inside this unit. Well, managing all those type of personalities, I don't know how Bill does it.
Yeah.
I wish I've been able to take my 4 years and see the relationships and the structure that he had and the built-in accountability that he had on every level to kind of keep him honest and in check, which I respected. He's one of the greatest leaders of all time, and yet he has built-in programming to keep him in check where he might be blind to a reality, or he might be skewed in something that he sees, but he always has people, at least one, that have full open door policy to come speak into who and what he is at all points. And I think that's probably the biggest priority for any leader is to have someone that can call you on your crap at any point in time, and you ultimately submit to their level of authority. Doesn't mean that you're always going to agree, but it means that you're going to take it back and chew on what that person is saying. And so Bill has done that on so many levels. But the NFL, what it demands of creating an environment where everyone can submit to one authority. What we have in the NFL and really sports in general and business all over, and you've probably seen this way more than I have in the business world, is anything with two heads is a freak. There can never be two leaders. There has to be someone that takes the ultimate authority if you're going to achieve ultimate sustained success. Again, there's a lot of ways to create a flash in the pan year. Oh, we sold more homes than ever. We were the number one team, in all of the land in 2019. Well, what's 2020 looking like?
Sure.
If leadership is right, we should be on this slow progression. We might have a fail, but we're going to fail up. And that's what Belichick has mastered, the ability to, hey, I'm going to honor you. I'm going to hear your opinions. I'm going to build up leaders around me. But ultimately, the buck stops with me and starts with me. And that has created an ability where, because he has lived with such consistency in every area of his life, now people come in and naturally just submit to his authority. And if they don't, they go bye-bye very quickly.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the amount of lessons and life lessons you learn there is just, it's unreal. And just the wealth of knowledge that you can give people. So you've kind of taken that and, you're kind of in the entrepreneurial space now. I've got the Built Ready hoodie on right now. Tell us a little bit about, what you're doing with that and tell us a little bit about Built Ready.
Oh, man. Well, Built Ready was something that I would almost say was forced on me, and so 10 years in the NFL, I was able to retire and go straight into NFL TV. And part of my story is after 8 years of NFL TV, I was accused of sexual harassment during the Me Too movement. The NFL paid me for 9 months. I went through all the, the background stuff. They used all my texts. I cleared their whole processes, and they decided to move on in what I feel was a lack of character way. And so I was forced into a season of life where I'm like, what am I going to do now? Because I had this stain on my so-called brand. Everything that I was gifted at and good at, I could no longer do because of the political correct culture that we live in. We can't go coach. ESPN, CBS, ABC, NBC, SEC Network, you name it, nobody would hire me. Not because I wasn't the best at what I did, but because, we have a culture that says, oh, well, we love you, but you were accused of this, so we have to kind of X you out. So I was forced into a season of life. I'm like, hey, what's my purpose? What do I do? And so I think in a process of really begging God, what do I do now? He's led me to really what I feel like my ultimate calling is in life. I am really good at being transparent with all my past mistakes. I think that's where men are the weakest at. I think our society has created an environment where men have to pretend like we have it all together, when really inside we're so fearful at times. We're so insecure at times. We have no answers at times. We feel so weak at times. And yet when we find a way to be truly honest and transparent with ourselves, that's where the real power starts to set in. So in simpleton terms, Built Ready is a place for men to master manhood together. I have built a system of 10 declarations that I believe every man needs to ultimately master every single day to master manhood, to be the best leaders, to be the best fathers, to be the best husbands, to be the best encouragers of others, and ultimately to be the leaders that I believe God created every single one of us to be. And so it is a place where men can work out together. We have daily readings that we do together. Right now it is literally three things. There's workouts we do together. There's daily readings we do together. And then there's a private Facebook community group where men are just kind of doing life together. The vision of what it'll be by the end of 2020 is massive. What it'll be in 5 years, I'm going to build an 8 million man army of men doing life together, men learning from each other, men just having a safe environment to be truly real and transparent. And we are on the foundational level, which every startup has its hiccups and hard days, which we are in the middle of them. But I'm truly excited about what we're building, and even the stories that have been created in just the last 80 days since we started.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, gosh, man, the amount of knowledge that you have and what people can there's so many lessons in the things that you have just said for anybody that's, an entrepreneur or, in any type of management. If you want to become a leader, you just want to get better at what you do. I mean, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, man. You dropped all kinds of gems on people, and it's fascinating to hear these things that you learned and that you've now taken and implemented in your life. And the thing is that I think is remarkable, with any entrepreneur, is we all fail and we fail hard. And you went from probably your lifelong childhood dream of playing in the NFL to getting fired from a job and then saying, hell, what do I do now? And then you picked yourself back up, which is just, I think, part of every entrepreneur's story and every businessman's story or woman. It's just remarkable. And, people go through the failure, and we all have, like you said, we all have the same fears. People see the success sometimes and think, man, this guy's got it easy. They never had it hard. And when you actually unpack, we are in kind of a similar mastermind group together. Heath and I are. I mean, all the titans of the industries of the people that speak in our mastermind, one thing we all have in common is we've all had massive failure. So I think it's cool to unpack that, and you tell that story too, because a lot of times people see the success and see what we do, and they don't realize what's behind that, and that we've all failed massively, and people forget that's part of it.
Yeah, our world celebrates all the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
The great men and women are the ones that have fought the inner demons, that have fought the unfair battles, and the world doesn't ever get to see that.
Right.
And so I'm trying to live this healthy balance of, hey, let me let you in the inside of my war days. Let me let you in on the inside of the 14-year-old Heath that was running in the street, scared to death that I wasn't going to get my college scholarship. Nobody sees the grind work. I mean, when I look at a 10-year NFL career, that was established by 12 years of hard work that really, started when I was probably about 8 years old.
Right.
But nobody celebrates what truly matters. People celebrated 10 years of NFL. And what will eventually be celebrated as something that builds men into what we're supposed to be. People won't see the days of being, literally crucified nationally and falsely accused of sexual harassment, when anyone that knows me knows that it could be further from my character. People won't see the days of dealing with the rejection from the NFL. People won't see those days. So am I going to focus on those days? No, but I believe that story needs to be told so people can understand that through any greatness, there's going to be massive trials. And so the trials, I want people to start focusing on celebrating the right things.
Yeah.
And really, because the stories that nobody knows about you are probably the stories that need to be praised the most. Your darkest days, your biggest fears, your biggest doubts are really what need to be celebrated because you conquered them. And so we'll praise the big business and we'll praise the business success. That's easy. The hard part was those demons we battled to get there. And so I need more people to really be willing to share the hard stuff so that people can know that, man, I'm not in this fight alone. Right. Other people are in these battles with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Heath, man, I can't thank you enough. I mean, you just brought absolute fire to us today, and I really appreciate you taking the time and spending some time and unpacking your story with us today.
Hey, been a blast. Thank you, brother.